In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful, welcome to another session of Finding God. We are on part 4 of Surah Hud. Now, there's been a bit of a break between the last video and this one. In fact, almost around a month. I had a huge exam that I was sitting, then I was submitting, then I did a Viva, then there was a conference. So there was a lot of things that I was tied down with, and I tried to arrange time for this, but the exploration of this wonderful book requires adequate time, and so does that other responsibility. So I thought of putting this on hold and continuing afterwards. With the grace of God, with the prayers of my parents and the support of my loved ones, I passed that huge exam that I was supposed to do as a scholar. And now all I have to do is research, read, write, teach, the usual, and speak publicly as much as I can. So I'm going to come back to this chapter now, which we started a while back in May. And sort of Hud, we've talked about different prophets. We've covered their lives, and today we're going to talk about Moses in this chapter, and then we're going to wrap up. That's it for today, and from next week, the next chapter, we'll get back into our actual rhythm, which we've been maintaining for all this time. So let us share. Last time I left it here, as if they had never lived there. So away with the Madianas, away with Thamud. All these nations were destroyed. Yeah, I remember last time we came to here, and then I stopped, and then I haven't started still. So, where's this thing here at the bottom? Will it go? Yeah. So I'm going to start here with verse 96. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. And indeed, we send Moses with our verses. Again, I use the term verses, but for ayat, it could mean multiple things, but verses is an adequate translation. And a manifest authority, which means that the verses were sent to him. It's almost like a power of attorney given to the prophet or the messenger. Like, all right, has a manifest authority, go do what we tell you to do, to Pharaoh and his chiefs. But they followed the command of Pharaoh, and the command of Pharaoh was no right guide. Yes, we know. He will go ahead of his people on the day of resurrection and will lead them into the fire, and indeed, an evil indeed is the place to which they are led. Yeah. The story of the Pharaoh, like I've mentioned this before, I was sitting next to this Jewish professor. Well, he's a professor and he's Jewish. And we were just having a pleasant conversation, and he told me of a wonderful trip he took to Israel. And I told him, look, Moses parting the Red Sea is one of my favorite moments of human history, because it's so widely discussed. So we are very familiar with the story of the Pharaoh and the people, and how he had exalted himself to the status of a god. I do this with a small g, because man-made God is something else, and God himself is something else. As Muslims, we don't believe that we create God. And if I were to dive into the auspices of Hinduism, I don't think they're talking about creating God. I think they're talking about representing God. It's a very narcissistic, arrogant perspective to think that you can create your creator. It's quite hard to circle that square, even scientifically. So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that Pharaoh had elevated himself to believing that he is a god, and he would kill people at will or create magical illusions just to give that impression. So on the day of judgment, he gonna die. We know he gonna die. They were pursued by a curse in this deceiving life of the world, and so they will be pursued by a curse on the day of resurrection. Evil indeed is the gifted, which means the curse in the world pursued by another curse in the hereafter. Yeah, that's quite disturbing, isn't it? Because what we typically pray for is, if my life is difficult here, please make my hereafter easy. And the people whose life is easy here, they don't really think about the hereafter. But Mr. Pharaoh and all his followers, they had an evil curse following him on the earth, and then a curse following him in the hereafter. That's next level kind of problems, aren't there? That is some of the news of the population of towns which we relate unto you, O Muhammad. Of them, some are still standing and some have been already reaped. So now God has talked about Noah and Hud and Saleh and Shuaib and Lot and Moses, and now God starts wrapping up and he explains and he ties it all back up. Master storyteller. We wrong them not, but they wrong themselves. Ooh, we wrong them not, but they wronged themselves. I love how that's stated. So their aliha, their gods other than Allah, whom they invoked, profited them naught when there came the command of your Lord, nor did they add aught to them but destruction. But I love this first part. We wrong them not, but they wrong themselves. Personal responsibility is huge. And we end up getting into a debate about determinism and free will, whether it's preordained or whether there is choice. But to think what ties it together, how we narrow down that disparity is something we've done philosophically, psychologically, scientifically, spiritually. But to think whether it's deterministic or whether it's freedom of choice, personal responsibility is the central core. Your duty, I think we've largely misrepresented, neglected, and forgotten the word duty. Your duty as a human being, your duty as a Muslim, as a son, as a husband, as a man, as a woman, as a child. What are your duties? You don't talk in those terms anymore. In Urdu, we say zimmedari, which is responsibility. Farz would be duty, which is an Arabic word. And in Hindi, you say kartavya, which is duty. But you don't hear that in common parlance. You don't say, ye mera kartavya hai. You say, oh, I'm responsible for this. But duty comes from the core. And I think even if it's free will deterministic, duty ties it together and it allows the human to manifest themselves completely. Such is the seizure of your Lord when he sees the population of the towns while they are doing wrong. Verily his seizure is painful and severe. And I go to footnote number 1 because it's below, but I'm going to read it as well. It says, narrated by Abu Musa, God's messenger said God gives respite to a zalim, which is a polytheist or wrongdoer and so forth. But when he seizes or catches him, he never releases him. Then he recited, such is the seizure of your Lord when he sees the population of towns while they are doing wrong. Verily his seizure is painful and severe. This is from Sahih al-Bukhari 64686. So it's true. We also believe that imagine a rope is tied to the human's leg or the human's body, and God lets it loose like you do when you fly a kite. Now, I understand a lot of the world's population have not flown kites, but I have. So I can give you that as an example. And you let the kite fly high, and suddenly you pull it back, and then it has no choice but to follow your command. And we give that example when we talk about God giving leniency after leniency to man, and then suddenly one day pulling it back. And when that happens, everything is changed. And that does happen. And that's the example given here. When God seizes you, he doesn't let you go. And that's a dangerous thing. Indeed, in that there is a sure lesson for those who fear the torment of the hereafter. That is a day whereon mankind will be gathered together, and that is a day when all the dwellers of the heavens and the earth will be present. That day I'll be so afraid to read. This is a wonderful nasheed by Daud Woonsby Ali, who talks about this. And we delay it only for a term already fixed. What does that mean? We delay it only for a term already fixed. Yeah, so I understand. So it's already fixed, and the delay and the moment or the time between it is only that with regards to what is fixed. I understand it's a wonderful way of writing it. Today we wouldn't write it in such a manner. Today it would be written something along the lines of, and the delay is of the length with regards to the fixed term, something like that. It would be more explanatory. So it's so interesting that in the Arabic this is poetic, but even in English translations it becomes poetic, and it becomes something that you may have to unpack or unravel. On the day when it comes, no person shall speak except by his leave, and some among them will be wretched and others blessed. May God allow all of us to be of the blessed. I have to say that. The more I think, what's up? The more I think about it, the more I worry. And I think that's every human being. So we stop thinking about it because it worries us. But that's something worth worrying about. As for those who are wretched, they will be in the fire, sighing in a high and low tone. Low tone, but sighing. I don't know. Sighing. Sighing doesn't necessarily reflect pain, but perhaps it's tying into something that even your sighs would be pain-filled sighs, because some sighs are full of relief. When you say, oh, it's a sigh of relief, right? But here, the sighing in a high and low tone. So maybe it's a sigh filled with pain. They will dwell therein for all the time that the heavens and the earth endure, except as your Lord wills. Verily, your Lord is the doer of whatsoever he intends or wills. Yeah, that's true. So it's saying that you're there and you're going to stay there for as long as God wants. I'm still thinking about sighing in a high and low tone. When we suffer from burns or cuts or bruises or pain, we sigh in high and low tones. I think that's what it's tying into. That you'll be in this zone, in this domain, and it will be filled with pain and anguish and ache. I think that's what it's tying into. That's an interesting way of doing it. Sighing in high and low tone. And those who are blessed, they will be in paradise, abiding therein for all the time that the heavens and the earth endure, except as your Lord wills. A gift without an end. I want that gift. Please, I need that gift. So be not in doubt, O Muhammad, as to what these people, pagans and polytheists, worship. They worship nothing but what their fathers worshipped before them. And verily we shall repay them in full their portion without diminution. I also worship what my father worships. I'm trying to understand why that is problematic, and the only logic I can derive out of it is, would I continue to worship what my father worshipped and still worships if I were presented with a better religion? As a critical thinker, as a scientist, as a rationalist, the answer is no. In the face of new evidence, undeniable evidence, you test, you falsify, but once it meets the minimum measure or minimum burden of proof, you move just like that. Scientific discovery, theory of scientific revolutions happens just like that. So as a scientist, if I were presented with a religion and it was somehow superior to the one I already follow, my duty as a human being and as a man of faith is to move to the next one. That's the rational choice. Holding on to what you think is right is not the rational choice. It's all evidence-based. I think the problem started happening for the pagans and the polytheists, that the evidence presented was also not written on court documents or not displayed like a scientific experiment, because this was a different time, obviously. And we say that now, but perhaps that evidence affects us emotionally where religion actually lies. It's not meant to be a mental evidence or something that we falsify scientifically. Maybe it's an emotional thing. That's why it's people of the past, human behavior, knowledge of the world and the universe, giving to the poor and the weak. It's those things rather than, well, 2 + 2 is 4. It's less that and more emotion based. So it is incumbent upon the rationalist, man of faith, because you can be a rationalist and a man of faith, exhibit A, to observe the new evidence, and if you find it's sufficient, you move to it. Just sticking to what your father worshipped is not progressive, is not understanding, is not adaptable or beneficial or successful in any regard. It doesn't help you. I don't know what's happening with my mouse. It's making a noise. So be not in doubt, O Muhammad, as to what these people, the pagans and polytheists, worship. They worship nothing but what their fathers worshipped before them, and verily we shall repay them in full their portion without diminution. It's interesting. You didn't just say, oh, well, so why do you believe in God? Well, my daddy believed in God. Is that it? Well, your daddy also killed 20 people. Will you kill 20 people? Or so forth. Or your daddy jumped off a bridge. Will you jump? So the logic has to be consistent. And I find that lacking in many religious discussions with people off the faith, without faith, off Islam, without Islam. And you must find some consistency. That's the rationalist in me speaking. Indeed, we gave the book to Moses, but differences arose therein, and had it not been for a word that had gone forth before from your Lord, the case would have been judged between them. And indeed, they are in grave doubt concerning it, this Quran, of course. Of course, when you have your own book and a new book turns up, obviously you're going to say, oh, that's different, this is different, ours is right, yours is wrong. It's understandable. And verily to each of them your Lord will repay their works in full. Surely he is all aware of what they do. So stand, ask God to make you, Muhammad, firm. Yes, so stand you firm is an invocation. And if God is saying it, intrinsically it's saying, ask me to help you stand firm. So I think that's what it's a lovely translation with this Quran, because it really opens up these avenues for people. So stand, ask God to make you, Muhammad, firm and straight on the religion of Islam as you are commanded, and those your companions who turn in repentance unto God with you and transgress not God's limits. Verily he is all seer of what you do. And incline not to us those who do wrong, lest the fire should touch you. And you have no protectors other than God, and you would then be helped. And nor you would then be helped. And it says in the footnote for verse 113, the sin of the person who gives refuge or helps a person who innovates a heresy in the religion or commits sin. This has been narrated by Ali anhu, on the authority of the Prophet. Narrated by Asim. I said to Anas, did God's messenger make Al-Madinah a sanctuary? He replied, yes, Al-Madinah is a sanctuary from such and such place to such and such place, like a area. It is forbidden to cut its trees, and whoever innovates a heresy in it or commits a sin therein will incur the curse of God, the angels, and all the people. Then Musa bin Anas told me that Anas said, or gives refuge to such a heretic or a sinner. This is from Sahih Bukhari 9/7306. Now, had I been reading this a couple of months ago, I wouldn't have been able to give you anything further than this. But I have been to Medina, and I've spent 5 days there. And I have lived in the Prophet's city, his town. I've been to his mosque. I've been to parts of the city. That place truly, truly is blessed. That is a blessed place. I have to tell you, that is a blessed place, and I can't wait to go back. I've talked about it in other videos, but that is a place. And perform a salat, which is prayer, at the two ends of the day and in some hours of the night, the 5 compulsory prayers. Verily, the good deeds remove the evil deeds, i.e., small sins. That is a reminder and advice from the mindful, those who accept advice. The good deeds remove the evil deeds, and in the brackets it says small sins. That is interesting. Sometimes we believe that committing an evil deed cannot be washed away, but maybe the argument here is repentance is not temporal. Maybe you have some time. Maybe near the end of your life, there is no more time left. But if you want to turn it around even now, you can. And it says in the footnote, narrated by Ibn Masud, a man kissed a woman and then came to God's messenger and told him of that. Why would you do that? What an odd thing to tell Prophet Muhammad. So this divine revelation was revealed to the Prophet, and perform a salat at the two ends of the day and in some hours of the night. The whole verse. Reminder for the mindful. The man said, is this instruction for me only? The Prophet said, it is for all those of my followers who encounter a similar situation. Sahih al-Bukhari 64687. I don't understand. Perhaps the woman he kissed was not his wife. Because if it were his wife, perhaps the translation might have said, a man kissed his wife. So if a man kissed a woman, in Islam, that's a no-no. We don't do that. You kiss your wife, you kiss your partner, your life partner. You don't kiss just anybody. I know that goes against the morals of today's society, particularly in the West, but also other parts of the world. But in Islam, we don't do that. So I think because it says he kissed a woman, and it doesn't say he kissed his wife, maybe it means he was violating the codes of conduct in Islam. So the Prophet reminded him of this verse. And then it also says, narrated by Abu Dharr, God's messenger said to me, be afraid of God and keep your duty to him wherever you may be, and follow up the evil deeds with the good deeds. Verily the good deeds remove the evil deeds, and treat or behave with people in a high standard of character. Very impressive. I found that very interesting. The good deeds remove the evil deeds. Why? So repentance makes sense logically, right? Let's say you kill a man and then you beg forgiveness or you repent. And God says, well, if you don't do it again, I'm willing to let this one go. Those are standards that our legal system functions on too. There are misdemeanors, there are criminal offenses, the first, second, third degree murders, so on and so forth. There's a whole system, particularly in the West, or British common law. So we do understand if somebody violates a code of conduct or societal rules, we can start with a warning. We don't start by killing them, right? So you say, well, promise not to do it again. I promise not to do it again. Okay, let's forget all about it. That's how we teach children as well. They do something and we make the child promise, don't do it again. And the child says, okay, I won't do it again. And then we let that one go. That's how we train accountability and good behavior. That's what we've always done. But this goes a step further. It's not just repentance. It's not just punishment or warnings. This is saying, you killed a man. I'm not finding an equivalent. I'm just giving an example. You killed a man, and then you gave charity to 1 million people. I'm trying to balance out the severities. You gave charity to 1 million people, and you built 1 million homes, and you prayed every prayer for the next 5 years. So that good deed is those good deeds are washing out this bad deed. I think a caveat here would be, well, the bad deeds should already be apologized for or repented for. Otherwise, it could be taken in a manner that I'll keep killing and keep giving charity, so the good deed will keep washing away the bad deed. I don't think that's what the Quran is saying. In fact, I'm certain that's not what the Quran is saying. But even beyond the transitive balance of how it affects your standing, it also speaks to routines and habits and personality. You're being encouraged here to do more good deeds because they'll remove your bad deeds. So let's say you stole some money and you say, I won't steal money again. How about I give all this to charity? And you give that to charity and it makes you feel good about yourself because it's a good deed. And then you say, last week I gave money to charity. Maybe I'll give some more to charity. And before you know it, that one bad deed leads to a whole lifetime of good deeds. Sometimes faulty foundations can have the strongest and tallest of buildings. Sometimes, I'm not saying always. Or even the cement, if the foundation is strong, the mixture could be weak or the intention could be weak. But we can be mindful of that. Anyway, how about we continue? And be patient, verily, God wastes not the reward of the good doers. If only there had been among the generations before you persons having wisdom, prohibiting others from al-fasad, which is disbelief, polytheisms, and all kinds of crimes, in the earth. But there were none except a few of those whom we saved from among them. Those who did wrong pursued the enjoyment of good things of this worldly life and were mujrimun, criminals, disbelievers, and polytheists, sinners. It's true, we know this. I've read all of this. And your Lord would never destroy towns wrongfully while their people were right doers. That's good to know. But how many of the people is I'm asking? If there's one right doer in a village or in a commune of 1,000, would you keep it safe? Maybe the one right doer has to have the intensity of 1,000 so you can slowly convert them. Like Prophet Muhammad, one man, 2 billion followers today. One man. So that's the intensity of the light that comes out of him. So I wonder about the town. How many? What's the proportion? I'm not trying to be funny or facetious. I'm actually curious because the reason is I live in Montreal, it's a town of 2-3 million. And if I say, all right, I'll be a righteous person, is that enough? So to be righteous on your own is the duty of a human being, but then that has to go further. I think I'd love some more discussion on this. And if your Lord has so willed, he could surely have made mankind one ummah. Yes, nation or community, one religion, but they will not cease to disagree. Interesting. Oh, so they're saying that God could have made them one nation, but they will not cease to disagree. So they will not stop disagreeing. Interesting. Except him on whom your Lord has bestowed his mercy, the follower of truth, Islam, and for that did he create them. And the word of your Lord has been fulfilled. He is saying, surely I shall fill hell with jinn and men altogether. The final footnote says, to show mercy to the good doers, the blessed ones who are destined to paradise, and not to show mercy to the evildoers, the wretched ones who are destined to hell. I shall fill hell with jinn and men altogether. That's a bit scary, I have to say. And all that we relate to you, O Muhammad, the news of the messengers, is in order that we may make strong and firm your heart thereby. Oh, Muhammad, O Prophet, imagine the creator of the universe is telling you stories so that your heart is solidified. What a great man you must have been. So incredible. And in this chapter of the Quran has come to you the truth as well as an admonition, a reminder for the believers. And say to those who do not believe, act according to your ability and way. We are acting in our way. So you do you, boo-boo. Sorry, I have to be sassy at times. And you wait. We too are waiting. And to God belongs the Reb, which is the unseen of the heavens and the earth, and to him return all affairs for decision. So worship him, O Muhammad, and put your trust in him, and your Lord is not aware of what you people, not unaware, I was saying, of what you people do. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. This took quite a while, I have to say. This took quite some time, but I'm glad I've finished. I can't summarize it. I've provided some summaries every week. That's a heavy chapter, Surah Hud, chapter 11 in terms of arrangement. Please give it a read. Is it chapter 11 or chapter 10? 11. Please read through it. The rhetoric is so beautiful because it's rhyming and it's repeating the stories of Noah, and I can't remember whether Abraham was in it, and Lot and Hud and Saleh and Moses and Shuaib and then all the way back to Muhammad. It's a very, very finely written chapter. I'm not going to wrap it up. No, because I'm still in thought of some of the questions it raises in me. Not questions regarding the content. The content is clear, but some other questions where it guides the mind forward, right? And it makes me think, what if that? So that one question of how many people in a town need to be pious? Oh, what's happening with mine? Just my mouse. How many people in a town need to be pious for the town to be protected from destruction? If it's 100% obvious, if it's 50%, then you say, all right, God would want to save the 50. What about 40? What about 30? What about 20? What about 10? And what about below 10? All these towns, all these civilizations of the past that have faced such destruction have been below 10%, right? So the Israelites, or the people of Thamud, or the people of Ad, or the people of Noah, the people of Abraham, people of Lot, the right doers are always the minority, always the minority. Even today, they're the minority. And I'm not saying as a Muslim that Islam is the right course of action. For me, that's what I believe, but other religions too. But we're seeing more and more that people of faith are losing in size compared to people who don't have faith. We're seeing that happen too. Maybe Islam is not suffering as much, but in parts of the world it certainly is. So I'm curious about that, because I live in Montreal and I think, okay, what if this city faces destruction? It would be complacent and arrogant of us to think, oh no, we live in the 21st century. Nothing could happen to us. Just ask the people of New Orleans. Ask the people in Indonesia. Ask the people in Haiti. Ask the people of Iraq, of Afghanistan, of Libya, of Syria, of Beirut, of Ankara, of Kashmir. Ask the people all across the world. A lot can happen. A lot can happen to you. Ask the people of Ukraine, of Russia. The examples are endless, and that's happening even today. It's not like the war in Ukraine or what's happening in the South China Sea or what America did in Afghanistan or Iraq, America, England, and parts of Europe. That wasn't a long time ago. That's happening even now. So to think that this couldn't happen to us, I think it's foolhardy at best, and blind at worst. So perhaps think about these things, and we shall discuss it further. Thank you so much for joining me again. Have a wonderful Friday, wonderful weekend.